precisely establishes the horizontal location and the vertical height, and the path of the left engine exactly impacts the wire spool number 7 and knocks it into 4 and passes by the spools 5 and 6. And so that's what I've got. So we're going to go into comments again.
First of all, I want to apologize to everyone here. I thought I was recording, but I wasn't, but now I am. It's disastrous. I apologize to everyone, but the first section has not been recorded, and only the last part of this section has been recorded. I apologize. That's all I can say.
Okay. Well,
I just want to note, I started recording like I think 10 minutes into the thing, so I can send you the whatever I have when it's done.
Who is this speaking?
That's Matthew. It's Matthew. I'm on my phone.
All right.
I recorded up to, I think up to like starting from the 10-minute mark, and then I'll check my computer when it's done. But I'll send it to you if you want.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Yeah. So first question, and because we are running over time, I'm going to limit the timing of the entire question and answer for this to be 10 minutes, and we're going to stick with the strict 2-minute per question. Okay, so first question is Craig McKee.
Okay, am I on?
Yes, you are. Let me spot
Great.
as well.
Well,
Spotlight.
yeah, okay, so I'll focus. There are a couple of things that I had wanted to ask that are, I don't know that they're directly connected to your measurements, but they do relate to the whole assertion of a large plane impact. The first one I want to ask about is when you've said on numerous occasions that Lloyd England, and I did a presentation for the group on him a while ago, recently, you've said that he never said that it was the long base.
I'm not going to answer any. Lloyd England is not part of the conversation. Please go on to a topic related to this.
No, I'm sorry. We just did something on Building 7, and we went on into various things that weren't directly connected to what you said.
Okay.
I mean, Sue, am I allowed to ask this or what?
If Wayne wants to answer.
Not on my list.
Okay. Do you have a
question related to the measurements? That's what I'm presenting on tonight.
You didn't have a problem with directed energy weapons being brought up a few minutes ago, but now you're gonna block me?
I didn't respond to directed energy weapons.
You didn't stop the person from talking, though.
Go ahead.
I think the presenter has a right to structure the conversation.
You have 2 minutes. You're using them up.
Well, I'll ask my questions. You don't have to answer them if you don't want. I wanted to ask what, given the fact that he has been quoted many times as saying that the pole that hit his car was between 30 and 40 feet long, how can you continue to say that he never said that? So I'll throw that out there. And the other thing I was going to ask is, how could you offer an opinion on what inside the Pentagon, and this directly relates to damage. So I think this should be within the parameters. What inside the first 3 rings of the Pentagon, which obviously don't have any external walls going through to the C ring, what inside the building could have stopped the 2 7,000-pound titanium engines from reaching the C ring exterior wall?
Well, I'll direct you to the International Center for 9/11 Justice website, in which I have an article that explicitly addresses that question. And the answer is that, first of all, your assumption is that these are solid engines, but the thing that everyone seems to have missed is that they are in fact rotating, and they are in fact gyroscopes. Now, if you take a gyroscope and you push one side, have it impact a column, it's going to tumble and bounce. It's going to have an opposite, in a perpendicular motion. You can take a wheel. You've seen these kind of tricks where you take a bicycle wheel, hold it up, spin it, and you can hold it on one side and rotate a little bit. That's a gyroscope motion. Now, if you try to take that and change its orientation by maybe pushing something, it's going to flip up one way or down, depending on the direction of rotation. So the engines that are going through are gyroscopes, very large, rotating, high inertia, high W inertia devices that are going through. And when they impact the columns, they will start to rotate and bounce and turn in other directions. And there's a paper up on the debated topics, and no one's responded to it since it got posted last, I don't know when. But the engines, I go through in that presentation, I go through where the engines are. I look at column 9B, which has not just a nice little column, but it's got a circular bend to it, which is right in line where the engine would have gone, suggesting that's one of the columns that it hit, which would then have created this rotating, bouncing, and tumbling.
Okay.
So that means it would have tumbled somewhere other than forward. Because I mean, if it's 7,000 pounds going at 500 miles an hour, I'm trying to figure out what could have deflected it or stopped it before it got a total of 300 feet forward. What obstacle could stop it from getting to the C-ring wall?
Well, I'm going to suggest that you and everyone else on this go up there and read the paper. You'll see that because of the angle of impact going through the field of columns, I identify some of the damage in the trail of the left engine. It ends up directly under the uplifted slab. And that's actually the point of the paper, is to explain the uplifted slab.
We have to move along to the next question. Chris Bergier.
Yeah, Wayne. Yeah. Thank you for participating in our meeting. I had a question. Are you from Connecticut? Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And you have a licensed PE in Connecticut?
No, I'm actually licensed in Michigan.
Oh, you are licensed in Michigan. Because I was doing some research. I believe that there was a April Gallup court testimony in the state of Connecticut on April 5th, 2011. And I believe did you actually participate in that hearing?
Actually, April Gallup was not there. That was a court hearing in which Bill Veal, I believe it is, had to defend himself in front of a panel of 3 judges. I was there. I watched him not be able to answer questions, why there were conflicts. Why did April Gallup in one case say there was a plane, and why did she change her story to say there was no plane at some point later? So he couldn't answer the question, and I was there to watch this.
Okay.
So the April Gallup was not there, or her testimony was discussed, though, by the judges at a high level, asking for why did she sign documents saying that there was a plane and she had got awards or damages or something like that, and then come back later saying that there was no damages.
So, but you actually think that she didn't see the plane, though, that she was maybe fabricating her testimony? Is that your opinion?
No. April Gallup was inside the Pentagon. She had just put her son down into an area, and she started to do something, and that's when the plane impact occurred, and she was near. Oh God, I can't remember the names of these people. She wasn't too far. I can't remember.
Yeah. Okay. No. You answered a question. I appreciate that. I just had a very other short question here. Part of my if you look at my screen share, this is a window.
I'm sorry.
Oh, is that too long?
Yeah, you've gone beyond 2 minutes.
Oh, I've gone beyond 2 minutes.
We have 2 more people.
Okay.
I'm really sorry, but
Okay, maybe later.
yeah, maybe at the end. Okay, so
Okay.
write it down. Okay, but I need to give Ray a chance, and then Mark had a question too, but I guess he can't raise his electronic hand. All right, go ahead, Ray.
Yes. A gouge in the trailer. That's the premise, and that was caused by a flap track fairing. That's the premise. But the trailer. What is the best picture you have of this damage? That's
Well,
this.
This is a good one.
Yeah, but that's the best one.
Yep. I'm unaware study. That's why there are several pictures that are of this type of orientation.
Yeah, but I want your best one.
This is it. This is why I'm using it.
One. Okay, but you made it bigger. Can we see it bigger? Because yeah. Okay. This is what you take into account of this gouge. This and if you look at it, it's not a consistent line. There's something. Is it only on where do you see the damage? Because I see something else than you see. But can you explain in this picture where this damage, how is the line, is the V groove, what is the shape of the damage? Because I see certain things on top of it, but you know, it's looking at a blurry picture, and that's why I was thinking, do you have a real good picture of this damage?
Well, this is probably one the best. There are other images of the diesel generator trailer, not very many. None of them have great resolution, but this one here, you can see that the first of all, you've got the back of the casing. The front casing looks like it's been bent over a little bit. You know, there's nothing to support it over here because the front was all crunched and ripped off by the wing as it's kind of going through. And what you see here is what looks to be a rectangular gouge, which seems to fit with the design of the flap track fairings. There, I don't have a bit. This is the best picture that I have in this set here.
I understand.
You can see it's kind of like a rectangular, and so it making the type of, let's see, where are we here? The type of the mark that we're looking at seems perfectly consistent. The width seems to be appropriate, probably about a foot 12 inches. I mean, a foot 14, 16 inches, something like that. So it seems to be fit the bill quite well. And
okay, but the gouge. You talk a lot, but the gouge with the shape you said square. It's kind of this shape.
You can
see paper.
You can
is
see
it square. Is it a box, kind of a square, and then through the whole trailer is the roof penetrated in this because I'm not seeing what you're seeing, and there's one picture 108.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the 10 minutes has expired.
Yeah, 108, please.
Okay.
Okay, the 108. We see some damage, but it's more round. If you look at the top of the trailer, it's not square, and that's why I was thinking, if that was hit by something, but I do not see the squareness of your gouge.
That's why I used the aerial view and to zoom in instead of this picture, because this doesn't show it. And if you notice the ribs in the roof line there's a discontinuity there in the direction that they're moving.
Yes.
Okay,
But it's quick.
Okay.
to the next part of the presentation because
This should go quick. So it has to go quick, right?
all right.
So this is the east face of the South Tower. As you know, that the top of the South Tower rotates about 22 degrees as it hinges from the west. The hinging effect is clearly seen. I'm going to review sequences from the Ana Jejong video and the Riviere Owens and Merrill video. So these are, I'm just going to have to basically step through. As I'm going through, we're starting to see the tower tip. We've all seen these before. I'm kind of doing it in slow motion at the moment. You can see the top of the tower come down. Something is going up. Now we're starting to see a bulge on the left-hand side, and we start to see the top of some perimeter columns being ejected out, and I'm going to keep track of where those are located. There's some other stuff in there. Then we're going to see the Riviere video. This is the initiation, kind of stepping through it. Same thing, different point of view. Now we start to the top is no longer visible. Now things are bulging. Now you can start to see the top of the perimeter columns that were seen from the side view, and you can see them coming out through here. There we go, right? And based on the using some measurements, trying to kind of estimate, this is almost, and other things, it's almost 300 feet from the side. They're clearly moving outwards while still in a vertical orientation, and they're surfing almost 300 feet from the South Tower. So I also want to mention that the South Tower core remains standing. I don't know how many of you know that, but the following images show the core from the same video. You can see this last one had a window horizontal at an angle in there. The next sequence, you can see a piece of the core standing. Not very good imagery, but it's clear that the core is still there. There's some framing. You can see the energy, but the main point is that you can see the core standing and it didn't collapse. So the Bazant hypothesis is irrelevant. So what are those surfing objects? I've taken them on the right-hand side and I've identified them in this picture. What I've got here is them color-coded. They're color-coded here. Another set of color codes, just showing you where they're located. If you look at them on the sides of the building, the east face is here. That's the location of these, just above the mechanical floor that has a different orientation. And here you can see it in this this screenshot here. You can see them, and you can see that there's quite a few floors there. Different resolution. These are from Noe DeWitt and Carrie Hunt. They're showing them here, and then you can see them again here. So again, it's many floors of perimeter columns. I estimated about a dozen floors. And if you want to analyze the trajectory of this, you can see that when you can see it, I'm noting where the X and Y coordinates are, and from that I can get the velocities, the locations, and from the locations I can get the horizontal velocities. This says 80 feet per second. It's really 90. I should have divided by or multiplied by 1.08 because I didn't take into account the cosine of 22 degrees. It's always good to have someone peer review your stuff. And then this is showing you that the vertical descent is position there. Velocity is increasing over time, which means you have acceleration, and the acceleration here, if it's adjusted, is about 30 feet from this data here, about 30 feet per second. So it's almost free fall. I don't know how to absolutely adjust for all the angles and things like that. And this is just showing the positions. If you go backwards into the building, this is where it came from, which is the same place where I showed they started off from. That's it. So a data table. This is just showing them all in the same place, and it can't be a tipping over, because if it tipped over, it could not get out to 300 feet, and it would be horizontal. So the images, the photos were showing that it was basically vertical, mostly vertical, as it went away. And so there we go. I can take my last set of questions.
All right. So Mark had a question, he didn't get it in, so I said he could ask it now. Go ahead, Mark.
Could I raise my hand for later, Sue?
Sure. You'll be after Ross and Chris Bergier.
Hi,
Okay.
I just thought.
Oh, and Matthew. Yeah. Okay.
Hello there. Yeah, I'd just like to ask Wayne if he took into any account with these measurements for any wing damage with the 5 light poles, because some studies show, if you look at some of the DC-9 tests with wings, that they couldn't even get through telegraph poles without shearing off. And I believe there was some damage, which was pointed out by David Chandler, to do with some debris that allegedly come from a wing. And it just, the physics seems a little bit impossible. And I just wonder whether he took into any of the allowances for the light poles with his wing measurements at all.
Well, I'm not sure I've captured your question here. I think you've gone back to the Pentagon and whether the wings can go through telephone poles. If you go up to David Chandler's website, 911speakout.org, go to my discussions on the Pentagon. I think in chapter 14, I think it is, you'll see I actually go through some airplanes that are actually crashed into things like telephone poles. And these are old planes, though they're not designed to go through the air at speeds with the jets. And they also, the 757 has I got flapjack fairings on my mind, but they're the part of the wing that extends out in front. So there's an actual structure in front, and one of those wings, front forward wing slats. They are actually in front of the wing. They would have provided protection, so to speak, for the structures. And one of them is banged up and is documented, talked about it. And if you take a look at the very thin walled aluminum light towers, they're not telephone poles. They're thin. They're designed to be severed, to be broken, to hold up a light, and not much more than that, so that when cars hit them, they aren't going to shear the car in half. They're going to break. That's how they're designed.
Okay, yeah, but I was just actually relating to if any of your measurements was taken into account. That was really part of the question, and obviously you've took into account that it's that particular plane that's allegedly crashed, even though we've got no ELT, emergency locator transmitter, that was activated at the time of the crash for any of the 4 crashes, which is official. even in the NTSB. And I just wondered, if any of that has been taken into account, because you're basing your premise on a particular plane when there is, DCC data that sort of suggests that that plane wasn't involved. But that's my question. I don't want to take up too much and overstep the mark. So thanks for letting me in.
Yeah, so actually this presentation, the detailed measurements were made because someone has claimed that there's a 737, not a 757. And that was the genesis of this. I didn't want to get into that particular level of detail because that's part of an upcoming paper. But I did not hypothesize that there was a 757. All the research that I've done has suggested that the only thing that could have created all the damage consistently is a large momentum impact by an object with the dimensions of a 757. I haven't tried to cookie cutter, or I haven't to force feed anything into it. This is what if you look at the damage, if your goal is to figure out what actually happened and you believe the laws of physics have any meaning at all, you follow those, and by looking at all the damage, it's completely consistent with what I've described.
Okay.
Yeah, I get that. Thanks. I won't overstep the mark. But yeah, thanks for your time there. Thank you.
Okay, we have Ross, and then Chris, and Jack, and Matthew, and then Ray. So go ahead, Ross.
Okay. Hey, Wayne, good to see you again, and hear your voice. And I just have 4 quick questions that have to do with the surfing of the exterior wall, but more particularly your hypothesis in general, the propellant hypothesis. So I'll ask the most important one first for me, and that is, you are familiar with the Harrod paper, the thermite papers, and I want to know what your take is on what were, or just tell me what you think about the red-gray chips that they found.
Well, in going through the Harrod paper, I'm specifically struck by the results of this. God, why can't I remember the names of these things? The differential scanning calorimeter test, where they actually put the red-gray chip in, and they measured how much energy there was in it. You don't know how fast it gets released, but you know how much energy it was based on the heat. And the reason is, once they got it up to temperature and it reacted, it created the tiny iron spheres that were similar or identical to the numerous, uncountable number of tiny iron spheres in the World Trade Center dust. So it seems to me that the red-gray chip, whatever they are actually composed of, how it was built, which one's the reactive member, because we don't have apparently any more good pieces to go and test. But based on the analysis that has been done on those pieces, you can see that they are both energetic. They are certainly not paint. You don't want to paint your structures with flammable material. It's kind of like not code. So for this stuff to have reacted that way, it has to have some exothermic properties, and so it would create the heat, melt, and create these other things. So, and in the process, my propelled demolition paper suggests that the nanothermite was not used as either an explosive, because there's no booms, as we heard earlier. There's no, and then besides a few loud ones, but the building's coming down and thousands of things are being sequentially destroyed. We're not hearing anything breaking them up like in the Las Vegas hotels. It's not cutting the steel and weakening it, because there's no damage for that, with the exception of a few pieces in the FEMA Appendix C. There's nothing that's widespread that looks like thermal stress damage. Everything just seems to have been broken. And the only thing I can hypothesize is that the buildings were pushed apart, pushed apart by propellants located in the core is probably the best direction, and put in a manner that doesn't need a nozzle or anything like that for accelerating it, but as a propellant. To me, it looks like Saturn V is going off inside the tower. A lot of propellant. Of course, the Saturn V is all directed down, and not a great analogy, but that's what it looks like to me. Did I answer your question?
I would have to say I agree with you on those observations. I would ask, do you think the red gray chips were a type of coating?
Oh, I don't know. I've suggested, based on my speculation, no idea, that they were put in as that they were created as panels, and that they were brought in as panels, because in order to get the amount of material you need, I think I estimated about 3/16 of an inch or something like that over the entire inside of the core, which not is all available. So there had to be a lot of material brought in, and best way to bring in a solid is in a sheet.
So you think the red gray chips were part of those sheets?
Yeah, that's my guess.
Okay.
And with a big G, yes.
Okay, and I asked you on second question. I asked you on the Colorado show a couple of years ago about your propellant, how the propellants, how were they? And you didn't have at that time you didn't have an idea about how they had been ignited. Have you come up with anything on that since that 2 years ago?
No, I've been waiting. First of all, I do these things, and it's usually no one responds. So there's been no engagement by anybody on those topics. So, and no one uses the paper. I don't see it cited anyplace. So I haven't done anything on it. I've got other interests that I do these days. So.
Okay. Well, I've been just for so you know, I've been using it pretty extensively. I have a theory that is because of you. I came up with it because of your propellant hypothesis, and so I've been using your paper among others. And the third question I have in regard to the propellants, and the rockets, I think that's what we did see basically or hear was a rocket going off, not traditional explosive devices when the building came down. So how come though, when these rockets, these propellant rockets go off, they emit intense bright light. And of course that would have been seen if that was going on inside of the building so bright, at least initially you would have seen some flashes on any of the videos. Do you have an explanation for why we don't see bright emissions of light?
My guess is that's why I think it's on the inside of the perimeter columns, or not inside of the core, because the bright flashes that you would be talking about would be on the sides that would be obscured by the walls, and it would the walls, the panels would be blowing out through the floor trusses, the office areas between the floors, and encountering all sorts of things and that I believe would be kind of obscuring it from view. We do have people, of course, talking about flashes of light all the way around. I don't see that in the videos, but it is one thing that's been mentioned. But I like to see things in videos, and there's nothing in the audio record that suggests the booms suggesting connections are being destroyed by detonations. Ray knows I like to use the word detonation when it comes to explosives, because of the fine line, the not so fine line between explosive detonations, propellants, and thermitic damage. So,
yeah, okay, I'd say I agree with everything you've said.
We do have to move along. There's 5 more people who want to.
Yeah, go ahead and move on. The last question has pretty much already been answered. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Chris, and then Jack, and then Matthew, and then Ray, and now Magnus has a question as well. So go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Wayne, I'll keep my question pretty short. I read your article a while back where you explained that it was impossible for them to use directed energy weapons because it would take too much energy. Okay. And I'm just going to do a screen share right here real quick. Are you familiar with the research of Tom Valone? He's an incredible researcher. He's a licensed professional engineer, and he puts the point for a 0 point energy being extracted from the quantum vacuum. And I believe that the perpetrators could have used this type of energy interfering microwaves to extract, this type of energy could have been the cause of the dustification of the towers. And I just wondered if you knew of Tom Valone's research, because it is this goes into Area 51 technology that I'm quite sure that the perpetrators have. So if you were to take a look at his research, maybe that would answer your question. Are you familiar with Tom Valone?
No, not with him. I'm certainly familiar with quantum vacuum energy. My other interest these days is astrophysics, and so discussions about the quantum fields, quantum vacuum, all the 0 point energy is it's one of the great embarrassments to cosmologists, but of course, cosmologists being embarrassed is a routine thing, I think. So,
well, that like say for example the electron circling around the atom, right? Where does the electron get its energy? If you pick up a rock, 500 billion years old rock, the atoms are still moving around. What's the source of this energy? And Nikola Tesla a while back made the case for it. So I just think that this is a certain type of research that we should be looking at. So
well, I encourage you to get up to speed and become an advocate for this technology, or if you can find some good examples, or even find some good theoretical literature, because believe me, the cosmologists need an awful lot of help figuring out stuff. They claim that that's the biggest this is a source of one of the biggest embarrassments of in cosmology. The mismatch between this vacuum energy and the dark energy that people are talking about. So,
okay, thank you. I'm all done.
All right, Jack is next.
Wayne, you're obviously an expert, and this is an expert presentation, but I have one question or disagreement concerning the plane that hit the Pentagon. A object moving at 400 or 500 miles an hour, at which the engine would be, is going to have a huge amount of momentum, and the gyroscopic effect will move it slightly to the right in its motion or left, but it won't make it veer. And also, it's got so much momentum moving forward this 8,000 or 10,000 pound object that it's just not going to bounce off of anything like a pool ball. It's just going to keep going blam straight ahead. And so that's my opinion on that. Oh, the other thing I want to say is that the pylons and where they're attached to the wing are incredibly strong on those planes, so that it wouldn't just be a round engine. It would be the engine with the pylon and part of the wing that was bouncing around if it were to bounce around. Thanks.
Well, as far as the engines go, do recall that both engines rotate in opposite directions. So, and they do that for, I guess, the reasons that you outlined. So they that I think addresses the first one, and the question about the pylons. Eventually, it looks like something broke. The plane didn't go through as a solid entity. Something broke somewhere, and I think once things start breaking, they start breaking, and they end up in failure modes that stresses that they weren't designed for. And let's see, the if you take a look at the two security cameras and take a look at the just how everything's things that are moving that you can tell, there's a police car, or I called it Mickey Bell's truck at one time, but it's a police car. You can tell how fast, what the speed of the timing is between the different frames, and you can. And my estimate was that the plane was going between those two cameras at 546 miles an hour, plus or minus some margin of error. And I mean, that's independent. No one had ever looked at this stuff before. I do the analysis, I come up with it. That's what the data shows, and invite you to do the same.
Okay, but that engine with the terrific amount of momentum it has, it's just going to keep going straight forward.
I think you should probably look into that assertion. I believe the amount of impact hitting a column will start it diverging from its original path, which will create, as it's going around like this, and you impact something, it's going to kick up, and then it's going to start hitting other things in other directions, dragging the wing piece with it that it's attached to, and eventually it apparently is broken somewhere. I mean, the engine is completely ends up in pieces. So I'd take a look in some more detail about your assertion that about the physics of the inertia of the engine. That would be helpful if you did some research on that. Thanks.
Oh, okay, and it was a very good presentation, except for that one disagreement.
All right, next we have Matthew. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One, the first one, since we were talking about the propelled demolition, just to grasp, just to see if I got it correctly. So your hypothesis is that there's propellant inside the center columns, and it's similar to a spaceship or a space shuttle engines, where the exhaust basically shooting them out. Is that, just to confirm, is that what you mean?
So the hypothesis that I put together, first of all, if you take a look at the way that the tower is behaving, you start to see that there's things that are going up and arching. The dust clouds are actually going up and up. They're going up and then arching, trying to figure out what the mechanics would be to create a trail for dust to go do that kind of trajectory. It came up with the perimeter columns being pushed out sequentially, so at a resonant frequency, so that the core column to the floor trusses would break, and the weak point is that the core, the connections to the exterior perimeter columns are much stronger. There's welded gusset plate, there's a damper, there's cross bracing, so the place is going to break is in the middle. So by pushing by having something going inside, pushing apart sequentially down at a constant rate, resonant frequency for the design of the towers, which all matches what we've seen, that is a good indication for kind of the mechanics. Now, the outward arching stuff that you see is probably the next floor being there are propellant being ejected, and it hits the floor.
Yeah.
Below
Sorry to interrupt. No,
right,
but
so,
I understood that part. I saw that part. But I was wondering.
But the next part, let me just get, next part is, in order to get that force, the assertion is that the nanothermite, that the red-gray chips, the remnants, all the iron spheres, came from some material inside the core, probably along the walls, that was ignited somehow, and once it was ignited, it would expand. And for when you have a flat plate and you expand, if you have an explosion, detonation, an expansion of a gas, it's going to go out. But if you have a long wall of it, a plate of it, it's going to be going out horizontally. And so the assertion is that they're using the material to both act as something that will expand, and it will have enough mass to push against itself as it's coming apart, and doesn't need nozzles like I think some other people have alluded to direct it, because you can't have a nozzle. That's a really complicated thing to do, but a flat plate that can be ignited and push apart seems like it could be done on a floor-by-floor basis. The explosions, I guess the explosions in the lobby that killed Bobby McIlvaine was a propellant, one of these panels that fell down and went off somehow in the lobby area, creating the damage. I don't know. So I mean, there's the mechanism in my paper. I highlight this as a hypothesis and a proposal, not as this is what happened. I have no idea. I can only guess and try to reverse engineer what happened, and that's what I tried to do.
Okay, yeah, I understand now. I'm just still trying to wrap it around. I have your paper here. So just if you can like simplify it. So basically, you're saying there's a full flat plate that somehow is it vibrating, or is it actually ejecting something out, or because I'm just trying to compare it with for the space shuttle, for example. Again, even if there's no nozzle, just to give you some numbers. The space shuttle would be, I think it's around like 300 to 1,000 total tons. Like that's including the fuel and so on, and that's just to launch a relatively tiny spaceship upwards. But then now for comparing it to the 500,000 tons, it just becomes like a whole other ball game. Like I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. But again, you don't need to answer that. I just want to, if you can just somehow simplify it.
So let me just get to I think the core of your question. First of all, we're not trying to lift off the Twin Towers and send it off to Mars, right? So all they were trying to do, whoever they are, was to push the panels up, push the exterior perimeter columns apart, eject them away, so they went outside, they were gone, and then ultimately there'd be the core standing, and they could destroy that somehow. Don't know how those things were done. But the whole point was just to get enough energy to push the exterior perimeter columns out, so they would break the connections, they'd be ejected outside. You'd have the sequential constant speed going down, and that's how it worked. And and part of that would explain the surfing perimeter column that I discussed in my last section.
Yeah, I've seen that. I'm just trying to wrap my head, but yeah, now the part is the lack of rubble. So like, where did those steel get launched to?
I'm sorry, we really.
If you take a look at the videos, you'll see that there's huge amounts of steel all around the perimeter columns, all around the perimeter field, well documented. I've spent dozens and dozens of hours going through those videos and the photographs, looking at all the steel. It's all there. They just sent a lot of it off to China. They kept enough around for engineers to look at, and I've looked at a lot of it over.
All
so
right.
we can move on.
Ray is next. Thank you. Ray is next. Go ahead, Ray.
Yes. The Saturn V gives a lot of flame and a propellant in as we know it. It's used in rockets. When the propellant is ignited, it shoots flames out of a nozzle, and they use a nozzle to direct the force of this propellant. So a nozzle is very important in the use of propellants. But I was looking at what your presentation was, the South Tower and this east face, part of the east face coming off the building. And I assume, because you were not very clear in that this was due to a propellant being used to push these panels out of the east side of the South Tower. But if propellant was used, and I think that Ross made also a very good remark, a propellant would emit a lot of light, and not only light, it would also flame would be visible in this, but there's only dust being ejected out of the east face. So how do you look at this? Because I do not see the propellant, and I see a lot of dust, but I do not see the propellant.
Well, first of all, it's my understanding that the rockets that are used, especially the Saturn V, is basically kerosene and oxygen. That's the fuel. So when you burn kerosene, it's a very specific reaction in which there is certainly a lot of light. We don't have much experience with with igniting the nanothermite, the little red gray chips, so we don't have a lot that we can say. I believe Mark Basile, when he did his little example there, you could see a bright light when it did react, which is consistent with black body radiation type things. So when things get really hot. So, but we don't know how bright it would be, how much you could see, and it's not the same as the kerosene, oxygen reactions that are used for rockets.
Okay, but this chip is emitting light when it is combusting in this experiment by Basile, and you see it's burning. There's some burning taking place in that moment of time. So if you use more of this, would it not create more light and even be more visible as a slab of I really it's a slab of totally red gray chips. It's made out of I do not see your propellant. I do not see it.
Well, I don't see it either. So if you want details on what I can't even imagine myself, and you're struggling, we're best buddies now.
Okay, I do not see it.
I can only hypothesize that it's probably many layers of red gray chip stuff, my guess, and many layers of something, and it's going to be ultimately ignited, and they're going to have to react against each other as panels, the layers in the panel, and they're going to be what gets pushed apart, and it's going to be on the inside of a wall, and it's going to be the wall is going to be kind of disintegrated and moved and pushed out, but it's going to cool the front enough. We don't know how this stuff works with any specificity, but we do know that the exterior perimeter columns are all pushed out sequentially. They come down at a constant rate. They're not accelerating, so there seems to be a resonant frequency, and so there has to be some forcing functions to drive it. And so the best I came up with is the propellant. And if you take a look at the east side, the aerial views, as in my paper, you'll see this it's just covered with this white dust. It's not concrete. I don't think it's concrete. I think it's aluminum oxide, which is the reactant from nanothermite. When you react it, you get iron, molten iron, and aluminum oxide, which is a white powder. So I think that's what it is. And so specifically how it was constructed, I don't know. Was it done with cutter charges like Jonathan Cole contrived with his exploding thermite cutter charge? No, there's no damage. It's no widespread damage that suggests that is the mechanism. And so there's no big boom, so it's not explosive detonations. It's got to be somewhere in between. It's got to be a propellant, and how it actually gets done I don't know, and I don't have, other than what I've written in the paper, I don't have any other better answer.
Great, thank you. Magnus is next. Go ahead, Magnus.
Great to see you, Wayne. One question for you. Are you familiar with that Niels Harrit says that you can't fall faster than free fall unless it's a rocket, and that the implosion of the South Tower is a little more different than the North Tower because the material in the North Tower was pushed outside, and that some of the thermite didn't ignite. That was thrown on the Deutsche Bank and outward. So all of it didn't ignite. It was something else, explosives forces, along with those two thermites. Do you have any opinion about that? That it was more explosives force in the South Tower than the North Tower?
I don't know. Certainly each tower had its own unique logistics to work around, so there could be differential placement of the propellant panels for no better explanation. But I'm not sure that was your only question. But no, I think I missed your first question. What was it? Or did I answer
it was just that questions about the explosives forces, the differences in the North Tower and the South Tower, because the material was pushed outside from the North Tower. That thermite didn't ignite all of it.
Well,
it ended up in the Deutsche Bank.
Well, I think the Deutsche Bank building, the dust samples that was it RJ Lee got were mostly 5 to 6% of that dust was iron spheres. There wasn't anything there about any documentation about there being red gray chips in that dust sample. So, and if it was a lot of it, I think they would have mentioned finding some odd stuff in there. So, and to me, the two towers look close enough that within the margin of errors, I'd say that they had the same thing. Just they've got different logistics on where to put stuff as they're trying to bring it down.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. You are amazing. I just have one more thing. Can you please copy the two links I have in the chat?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. You are amazing. Thank you for all the work you are doing. Keep up the good work.
And Susan, can you save the chat log?
Yes, I will save the chat log.
Because sometimes we shut the Zoom down before we do that. So it'd be very helpful. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. Well, the video that Magnus shared is 2 minutes. Do we want to play it?
Yes.
I'm trying to bring it up. Sorry, I've got an old computer.
While you're bringing it up, I'll just mention real quick that Wayne, I'm shocked that nobody has mentioned the veracity with which you have made these very detailed measurements, for instance, from the wingtip to the fairing and the damage on the generator, aligning with the engine on the other side, taking out a gouge. And I think there's a tree that was also gouged too, was there not? You didn't mention that today. But all of this evidence, it's just shocking that to me, that nobody's taking you on at the level of the evidence that I've seen, and certainly not in this particular presentation or Zoom conference call. So I just want to say that it's very, very impressive.
Yeah, well, thank you. When I try to engage people, ask them, well, what caused this? What caused that? All I get is called bad names and no one addresses the evidence if they because the evidence is, as you can see from what I've shown with the precision measurements, it's all consistent with the large plane impact by an object that's got the dimensions of a 757.
Yeah, I get a lot of that too on the towers.
The last thing that I needed to solve for myself was what caused the uplifted slab. That was some of my astrophysics stuff led me to the discussions of precession, and then when you look at the column 9B or 9C, it's in the paper. You can see that there's a circular area in the column, suggesting that, by gosh, that's right where there's supposed to have been either the piece of the wing pushing against the column or the engine itself, and there it is. And
what about the tree?
Ends up being right under where the uplifted slab is, and so it explains the tumbling and bouncing. I don't have to make up stuff. I just got to interpret the data that's there. Not that I'm trying to force fit anything, because I started off my Pentagon journey trying to support to laugh at the large plane impact. But when you started looking at the data, you couldn't laugh at it.
What about the tree?
The tree in front of column 16.
Yeah.
It's obviously a tree that was there. It got severed. You can see the stump, and the base of it. The base of it has been kicked out to someplace around column 5. The top is because it's all bushy. It's got a lot more air resistance. It stays closer to the area, and you can see it in the Will Morris photos of the North Tower. You can see it's burning. You can see afterwards they've cut up the tree. So you can see the orientation of the tree, where to come from.
But the tree I'm referring
for.
You had shown a picture of a tree, or maybe David did, that had the top gouged out of it. That wasn't in your presentation.
That's on the other side of the highway overpass. There's a tree that is right in exactly the location for if the right wingtip just tips or catches and the Virginia Department of Transportation tower, if it just nicks that, the engine's going to be right over the middle of this tree, and if it's at that dimension, the column or light pole number 2 is going to get just dinged by the side, and that's why it's not severed. It's bent and laying by the side of the road, because it wasn't severed. It was knocked to the side, and that's when the lamp support arm and the lamp arm got knocked off on the short end. The lamp support arm is what was in just Lloyd England's taxi was in just the right place for that to happen, and that's is a piece that he pulled out. Apologies to Craig. I didn't want to get into any of that stuff, but sorry I stepped in it.
And I stepped on Al. Sorry, Al. Go ahead.
Well,
just a quick question. Did you ever do any?
Al, can you hear me?
What? I can hear you.
Yes. Jerry he couldn't electronically raise his hand, and he asked if he could ask a question before you raised your hand. So Jerry is next.
Hello, Wayne. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear, not so well, but go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I enjoyed your presentation. I commend that level of detail, looking at the buildings that way. At that level, at the South Tower on the east face, you're looking at around about floor 77, you said, just above the mechanical equipment levels. At those levels, the mechanical, all of the columns thicken very slightly because you've got a 2 floor span there, but without any floor slab between. So these are the connections over the whole columns at that level, the core columns and the perimeters. They're welded and bolted, and they're thicker. It would seem to be a point where the building would perhaps pivot in terms of that face. If you're going to throw out perimeters anywhere, it's going to be there. Did you consider those connections? I'm happy to look them out for you.
I'm not sure I understood the question. I think you're saying that the perimeter columns that I was showing and I highlighted with the different colors were various heights. They were right above the mechanical floors. You were saying that they were bolted and welded. I didn't think there was anything welded, but but when you actually take a look at the dimensions, these perimeter columns are actually more or less vertical as they are rejected out. I mean, they're tipped, but they're not horizontal. It's not falling and rotating, which I think is kind of what you were suggesting. And because they're out over 300 feet when we're looking at them, and so they haven't fallen nearly enough for it to be an arc. And I had an image on that, if that's even the question you're asking. So did I answer your question, or?
Yeah, I suppose it was as much an observation that the building is stiffer at that particular point, right beneath that bit where you can see these columns coming out. But I enjoyed your presentation, and I'll look at the PDF that came with it closely.
Yeah, and if you go to the Colorado Truth, I gave a talk on propelled demolition. If you haven't seen that one, that has more detail on the discussions and these some of these columns.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, Al, it's your turn.
Oh, thank you. Just a quick question. Have you worked with Leroy Halsey? Any communication with him? Never?
No. I've tried to contact him over the years, but who am I? No response. He did a really good job. Answered a lot of my questions about Building 7. So I think he did a great job reviewing the presentation materials in the report that he put together. I haven't followed up on a lot of the anything more recent than the last few years, but yeah.
Second question was, are you familiar with Matthew Sabin, with Sabin Civil Engineering, and his theories of the transfer trusses on Building 7, explaining how it collapsed?
No, I know the NIST explanation. I know that they didn't have a lot of the structures right, and the dimensions were wrong, and they won't correct it. But I'm not familiar with this discussion about transfer trusses. I may have been one time, but I've forgotten it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Matthew is next.
Let me just put my lower hand. Yeah, my question is similar to that propellant where you claim that it launched everywhere. I just want to share. I've 3 photos. I just want to see what your thoughts are on it, if it's okay. And this is the first photo. This is before, and there's after. And there's Building 7 in the background, so it's before all the cleanup crew came on, and it's ground level. There's North Tower. And there's 8 stories above there. It's above the rubble pile. And also, the building is 200 feet wide. So where these guys are standing, it's about 200, 300 feet away. So even if it went 600 feet, that's where the letter G is. So that's one photo. The second one is, this one is from a friend sent me that his firefighter friend took. took, this is the south tower. The lobby's right here. So whatever's inside, well, it's not going to be propelled past this standing vertical column. So nothing crushed this, and the rubble pile underneath is less than the lobby. Similar to this one right here. And the last one is this one here. This is, I think, building 6 with the giant hole in it. And there is the north tower just standing vertically. Yep. And you can see that nothing's hitting this one here. So if there's a giant propellant wall that's launching everything from the center out, yet the surrounding buildings are almost perfectly fine. Like this one, not even a steel piece on it. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that and so on, and particularly this one.
An entire presentation in 15 seconds, right? So what you're basically saying, I think that was I'm actually not sure what building that is.
This is North Tower. It's North Tower. That's building 7 right there.
So if you take a look at the FEMA directions of steel, you'll see that it's going off perpendicular for the most part. And I believe it's either World Trade Center 2. I think that's probably the one. It's not perpendicular. It's out of the way. So building 7, building 6 is going to have all those perimeter columns thrown on top of it. No atomic bombs, no nuclear weapons, just stuff crashing down. And if you look inside, there's all kinds of perimeter columns.
Well, inside is just like ground level. And if you actually take a 3D model, is that someone sent me the LiDAR data? It's actually slightly below ground level, inside the building 6. So some areas that if you actually get the model with the LiDAR data given, and then you raise it up and down, it would pretty much be, it's actually slightly less than ground level. So whatever these holes are actually as if something literally carved it out and took it out. There's nothing actually falling into it that would create anything like this.
Yeah, well, there's basements too. So at any rate, I don't have any more detail on this particular topic.
I can help you out a little bit there. There was testimony before the 9/11 Commission that molten metal was dripping down the sides of the walls of Building 6. So my thought is that they tried to take it down also and got half of the inside of it taken down, which is why it's all the way down to ground level, in my opinion.
Yeah. I just look at building 6's, 6, 5, and 4 is collateral damage, and 3.
Oh yeah, and 2, and also the Bankers Trust. And speaking of the molten one, I think a better term would be liquefied, because there was very little heat on 9/11. For example, this one, if you can see this photo, this is all the hundreds or thousands of workers literally on 9/11 walking through all the rubble. So whatever they're seeing isn't actually like conventional heat.
Half of my presentation, Matthew, is on all of the irrefutable, overwhelming evidence for extreme temperatures from molten iron, molten steel, and so forth. And obviously, you haven't seen my presentation. I recommend it to you.
No, I have seen it. I'm just wondering why you always talk about high heat.
Ignoring the key evidence that I presented.
Well, this one here, this spot here, according to the government data, would be 819 degrees Fahrenheit. It's literally water there. Water's not boiling. They're walking in there. There's also 300 dogs, rescue dogs that are running around in the cleanup looking for survivors. And not one of them had a paw that was burned.
Look at my presentation. You'll see all kinds of evidence for at least 40 minutes of evidence on extreme heat.
I have looked at that, but again, like these photos, these photos debunk all that. So it's like it's I would say
I think my presentation debunks your photos.
That's all right. That's I don't know what else to say. Anyways,
I think what I've seen is that there could be different things taken at different times. That getting everything time stamped is pretty difficult. So.
Yeah, but again, throughout it, at any moment, including even inside the hole, there's a Edna Centron literally inside the impact zone waving, and so on. So that's
all right.
So that's all for this one. I'll just stop sharing. How do I stop? I'll stop. I don't know how to stop.
Where do I share? How do I stop sharing?
It should be at the top of your screen. Next, we have Miles. I'm not sure we're going to have time for Ray. Ray has his hand raised, but we have a whole agenda to
Oh, there it is. Sorry.
Okay, so I just like to say I came in late. Maybe this has already been covered, but on September 10th, Donald Rumsfeld is in the news saying there's a $2.3 trillion accounting anomaly that is a mystery. And then the next day, we have as is being stated today, a 757 hitting precisely the accounting department of the Pentagon. That's really a marvel in itself. And you know, it's such a huge building. I believe it's considered to be one of the world's largest buildings in square footage. And wow, just so happens this 757 takes out the accounting department. Just wanted to put that on the record. Any comments?
The other accounting department was in Building 7, I think.
No, I've heard that there was accounting, Pentagon accounting, and the anomaly. The Pentagon's never successfully undergone an audit, and apparently, yeah, I've heard basically it's history.
Well, did you want to comment on that, Wayne?
That's not my field of expertise. I deal with the damage.
Okay. All right. So Ray, we'll take you as our last question because we're way over time. Thank you. Go ahead, Ray.
Can I make a comment, Sue? I'll make it 10 seconds.
All right. Go ahead, Jack.
Oh, okay. It's just that we were talking earlier about what was propelling the walls out and why there wasn't much flame. I have some familiarity with hydrogen, and it could have been barometric bombs and hydrogen on each floor, which would blow the walls out of any building. Thanks.
Okay. So Ray, you still have a question for us?
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead.
It's about the Pentagon and the damage, as I understand that Wayne is saying that it was only caused by the impact of a jetliner. And then we have to think about the kinetic energy of that plane. But something else is taking place at the Pentagon, and that's a huge explosion. And the Pentagon Building Performance Report has a name for that explosion. And the name is a fuel-air explosion. They call it a fuel-air explosion. So why has Wayne never investigated the blast pressure of that explosion? Because I think if you look at the floor slab, there's no mechanical damage visible on the underside of that floor slab. And I have pictures of the floor slab from underneath. But the explosion which took place at the Pentagon why is it not investigated?
Oh, was that the end of the question?
Yeah. Why is it not investigated?
Because there's no damage associated with the deflagration, which is the burning of jet fuel in air. There's nothing associated with it. There's no windows that are blown in off the first floor. There's nothing that's been ejected onto the lawn of significance that I can see. All the damage has been going towards the wall. I don't see any damage that is associated with explosive damage. I see a large momentum. I see, of course, the large amount of flame and light in the video. You also notice that as the plane comes in, it impacts the wall. There's in the security cams, you can see that the air is not just being blown out, it's rising up, and that's because of the trailing air mass that comes in. So you've got, there's no damage that I can, and you've never, as far as I know, provided any evidence of specific damage associated with it.
Don't.
So
I think that if you listen to the witnesses and they all explain what they heard on that day, and they heard something like a 2,000-pound bomb going off, that's a detonation. And a deflagration does not cause the sonic boom that a lot of people heard. So there was much more taking place at that moment in time than was investigated.
well, the references to sonic booms all seem to be associated with flights leaving much after the impact. The flights leaving the Washington area, going potentially, I think it was up to where to Shanksville. Let's see what else. There was another thing, but sonic booms. Yeah, I don't know. But again, I'm not seeing any damage that can be attributed to the detonation of jet fuel, and of course your jet fuel and mixing with the air is kind of like what they use for launching Saturn V. Lots of lights, lots of smoke, and you see that, but it's all pushed up because of the trailing air mass, as near as I can tell. You know, I don't see any damage from that doing any damage to the building. Oh, and I'm a physical damage investigator, you might say. I look at the physics. You know, when there's things I can't explain about people's behaviors, people saying that they heard an explosion, big bomb. The word explosion, if you go look it up, means anything from a little firecracker to a gunshot to a nuclear weapon. You know, so it means all, doesn't mean anything precise, and that's the reason I look at physical damage. Is I gotten tired of arguing about this guy put a comma. There should be a comma in what this guy said, and not a comma, or not a comma. Give me the data, give me the damage. I'll see what actually happened. If people said that to go look here, I'll go look there. I'll look for this, I'll look for that, and I'll take a look. But I do physical damage. I don't see any good reason for taking what people say as exactly what happened. Witnesses aren't very good at recounting things in general. So
all right. Finally, we do have Al raising his hand. I thought we had our last question, but since he's our official moderator.
Well, you never know.
You're usually the one who complains about us going over time.
Right, I know. And every time he speaks, I have a question. But outside of your expertise, Wayne, why do you think there's only one video available showing the quote unquote plane that goes into the Pentagon? Have you ever explored any of the reasons for that?
Well, I know Ken Jenkins, of course, has written about that. But there's really 4 videos. There's the 2 security camera ones, and and by looking at the timing between those, I was able to estimate that the plane was going by at 546 miles an hour, plus or minus some error. There's also a Citgo video where in the Citgo video, you can see the shadow of, see something that looks like, and is at the right time for a shadow to be the wings or the plane. So there's that one. And then of course there's the double tree, which doesn't show the plane per se, but it shows the event, including the deflagration that we were just talking about, and it being lifted up over the roof. So there's kind of 4 videos that are appropriate to talk about. And of course, the plane impact only lasted from when you could see it to just a matter of a couple of seconds. And security cameras that are scanning the area, they claim weren't picking up anything. But the videos, I always hear that there should be more videos. They should release more videos. But from what I've gathered, no matter how many videos they come up with, because I've got two really good ones. If you use the FOIA version, you can actually see it. If you do what Mizuko did and use the YouTube re-rendered, blurred out ones, then you can't see the details and you can make up stories. But if you use the FOIA ones, you can actually make out enough detail to determine the speed of the plane and that there is a plane.
Oh, thank you very much. I think we need to close. Did you have any closing remarks, Wayne? Before
I just say that I very much appreciate all the comments and the questions, and appreciate the Boston 9/11 group hosting me for this conversation. It took me a while to get the PowerPoint together, and appreciate the opportunity to share some of the research that I've done in the past and some of the new stuff that I've done recently. So thank you very much for your time and your attention. And
thank you very much for joining us. This is fantastic. It was a mental workout. I'm exhausted. And I appreciate everybody's participation. We definitely have an intelligent group here, thought-provoking questions, and very well handled. And I'm looking forward to sharing the complete video if I can get the complete video. But certainly what I did get, we'll share at least. So at this point, have a great evening. You're welcome to stay on for the next portion of our agenda if you like. But we're going to start that at this point.
Well, I'm gonna sign off. I have some other things I need to take care of. So please remember to save the chat and send me a copy of that. Okay, Susan?
Absolutely, will do. Everyone will get a copy of the chat. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.